And we are live. Today is May 21st. This is the Backdrop weekly meeting. Before we get into the agenda, let's quickly go around and introduce everyone. Nate, would you like to go first?
Sure. Nate Lampton, Backdrop core committer, and today I'm excited about the release. And so releases. And so we're going to talk about those. Ta-da.
Luke, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm Luke McCormick. I'm a product management consultant in San Ramon, California. And I'm mostly lurking at this one.
Joseph?
I'm Joseph Latt from Las Vegas, Nevada, backend developer.
And I am Jen Lampton from Oakland, California. Kind of a full stack developer. I do little bits of all the things, but none of them particularly well. Let's see. So this week and on the agenda, there's a lot of stuff going on in the PMC issue queue with conversations, but I don't think there's anything that's ready for announcements. So just chatter, which is exciting. However, in the contributed project world, we have 2 new releases since last week. So Resave Nodes and Invite module both got their first stable releases out. So thank you everybody for continuing work on Contrib. And Nate, do you want to talk about the website related development tasks?
Yeah, so we did some changes or deployed some changes that had been queued up in project module and the peripheral modules around that, including GitHub API and the custom Borg GitHub integration module. And we've made some changes to the packager, that the packager now can exclude certain files, and right now is excluding files related to CI integration when a package is created. So that includes Zen CI YAML files, Travis CI YAML files, GitHub Actions YAML files, all of those things that are related to the tooling around using the repository and the CI integration, stuff that doesn't make any sense for people to have pulled down into their copies of the modules on their own websites. Not to mention,
is that in project module?
Project module now has a hook that allows modifications to take place, and the modifications are in the Borg GitHub module that specify what our exclusion list is.
Okay, cool.
And so we had been talking or thinking about making it so that Backdrop's packager had its own YAML or JSON file that configured how the packager would work, like excluding certain files, kind of like git ignore for the packager. But that can be a later thing if we decide that it needs to be flexible. For now, it's just a hard-coded list of pretty much every CI platform out there. Oh, and like Tugboat and stuff like that. And so the opportunity that affords us is that it makes it so that we can manage our own CI processes better for the core project, probably for Contrib too. I saw that a lot of Contrib projects are trying to set up Travis CI for complicated automated testing. But for core, it provides us the opportunities where right now Zen CI is providing our sandboxes and Zen CI is providing our automated testing, but the configuration of like what PHP version we're running and other things is hard to find and hard to change. And now we can start moving those YAML files for configuring how the automated testing works directly into the core repository without cluttering up people's downloads of the zip files. So anyway, it's affording us some opportunities. Oh, and we laid the groundwork of getting package signing put in place, that the new version of project module supports code sign, but code sign isn't yet on backdropcms.org yet. So anyway, we're moving along on a couple of fronts, which is exciting. I'll just go right into the project update. Does that sound okay? Okay. So project update. Backdrop 116 was released. Can we get a little yay? Yay. Okay. So that was May 15th. It seems hard to believe that that's been less than a week ago that 116 came out. We don't have a blog post covering it yet, but we do have the release notes on GitHub, which covers the numerous features and functionality that we got at 116, which was a really excellent release. So I'm very excited with everything that we put into 116, and now the door is open again into opportunities for 117. Unlike most releases, almost everything we strove to get into 116 actually got in. And so usually the next release is like, well, let's finish the stuff we didn't get done in this release, but we finished like almost everything. So that gives us some more opportunity than usual to pick some new directions, which may be in some part guided by initiatives that we may talk about in a subsequent meeting, but I don't think we're ready to do that today. Anyway, I'm getting all over the place. 116 came out, and it's very exciting in color module, some PHP notices. I saw that some changes came in at BW Panda, also had been merging, which I really appreciate. And most importantly, though, and there was a fairly big problem in the new filter UI for both 777 and 888. And as usual, we had to coordinate a matching release for Backdrop. So 116.1 came out within the same week as 116. And had we been in control of the security releases, we probably wouldn't have done that. Like, we don't like to make a minor release and then immediately make a security release 4 days later. That's not ideal for our users because it makes us feel driven to update to the latest version. So 116.1 came out to fix those two security issues, but we also released 115.3 as an alternative for those that feel that moving to 116 all at once might introduce some risk for them. So yeah, lots of things. We released 116, 116.1, and 115.3 all within the past week. So 116.2 is now the next bug fix release. We don't have any major critical issues that are in 116 that I know of to be addressed, because we already fixed those small issues that we found within the first couple of days. So 116.2 will be the next bug fix release, but we don't have anything of urgency to bring up. Although if you look at the 116.2 milestone inside of GitHub, there are now 63 issues in there that are all, we'll call them of priority, but they're usually things that have some impact in some situations and also have code behind them already. So the 116.2 list is a great place to be putting your attention right now if you're looking to contribute some reviews or code. So that's all I have on 116.2. And then 117, like I mentioned earlier, is kind of looking a little bit like an open book. We have some discussions about the initiatives. If you're interested in guiding the direction of 117, continuing discussion in the forum about potential initiatives is a good idea to be putting your thoughts and feedback into the initiatives process and what's large overarching things we should potentially be striving for. We're also not getting rid of the advocacy approach, where every individual within the Backdrop community can advocate for one particular issue. And an advocate simply means that you promote and push forward on that issue. You can be a developer or you can not be a developer. But we hope that by being an advocate, you get increased visibility into the problem, and we add it to these weekly agendas so that we can talk about it every week. But you do also have to post an update every week with the status of that project. So the advocacy approach is still something that we're doing. And if you have things that you're interested in doing in 117 that might not require a whole team or something that can be done within a single release, I highly encourage people to choose some issues to start advocating for and be the hero that issue needs. Let's see, 117. Yeah, the only thing that got bumped from 116 is that we wanted to deprecate cache clear all, and we didn't get around to removing all the instances of that in 116. So that's like a small thing that got bumped that could possibly be picked up, but it's not really a high impact thing. So
That isn't currently in the 117 milestone. We just removed the 116 milestone. Do you think it's important to add it to 117?
No, I think it's worth mentioning that it got bumped out of 116, but I don't think that it really necessitates something as being like, let's schedule this for 117, unless someone wants to be the advocate for it, or at least until somebody puts up some code behind it. That is a good first issue, though, for a new contributor or someone not super familiar with Backdrop's code. Yeah, not a horribly difficult thing to manage. But that's it. 117, I think the only thing I have to reiterate is that it's kind of an open book at this point. The release will be September 15th, 2020, which is seems like it's ages away, the whole summer. But as always, I'm sure it'll be here before we know it. So that gets us into the general discussion and Q&A. There isn't anything marked in the agenda, but Luke or Joseph, do you guys have anything you guys would like to talk about? I know there's something, Luke. There's always something.
There are some things. This one's more like a support carryover from the previous meeting. Jen, you wanted me to put an issue in the theme switcher issue queue.
Do we have a theme switcher issue queue?
No, I couldn't find one.
There's theme key is ported for Backdrop. Are you talking about making it so that you can have multiple themes? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Theme key is ported and has a maintainer, I believe.
Oh, all right.
That
I will add my issue to theme key then.
Okay.
I had mentioned at one point that let's see, I'm checking it. I'm pretty sure that there's a module theme.
I can't find theme key.
I can't either. That's funny. Maybe what I'm thinking of is that it's been ported, but it might not be in the contrib group.
Yeah, it might be in the issue queue.
Applications.
Yeah, let me go check there.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a philosophical disagreement, I think, with the D7 theme key maintainer, and maybe that discouraged him from completing the contrib application. I'm not sure. But related to that, I'll express my opinion and whether that's popular or not. That multiple theme support in Backdrop Core is an unusual thing because there's no capacity to actually run more than one theme at a time. There's only enable and set defaults, but you can have multiple themes enabled, but having multiple themes enabled does absolutely nothing. I mean, you can change the settings for each individual theme, but other than the default theme,
Is
Only
there
one-
still a UI and user module that lets you choose a different theme?
No. Yeah, that has been removed even in Drupal 7. Like you used to be able to, at a per user level, choose a different theme if you so wanted to, but that functionality hasn't existed in core in ages. And so
It's funny though, that feature is like in high demand in the world all of a sudden, as everybody wants dark modes on everything. But rather than it being like a per account setting, it's like a cookie where like you, as a visitor, logged out visitor to a site, you can click dark on like anything like Twitter or whatever, and it'll switch it. So it's interesting that like feature is back, but it's now implemented in a way that's completely different than it was when it was in core.
Yeah, even then though, it might not necessarily mean another theme. It could mean, another style sheet within a theme, and it could be a feature of a theme that has a dark mode. So I don't think it necessarily means that core needs to support multiple to make dark modes possible,
Yeah.
And it already has like a hook custom theme that lets you write a module to do that on the fly anyway.
What was that, Joseph? Sorry, hook
There's
custom theme.
You can do hook custom, or I think it's hook custom theme. I might be remembering that wrong. Or no, I don't remember what it's called, but there's basically a hook where you just return the name of a theme and it changes that to that theme as what it uses.
Right. Yeah. There's the unfortunately a global named theme or theme key. It's funny that there's two of them. That if you change that, it changes the theme that's used on the page. And that my proposal had been when theme key was being ported, that theme key really should take over the responsibility of having multiple themes enabled in the first place, and Backdrop's user interface should really be focused on what is your front end theme, like rather than this whole like you have 4 front end themes enabled, which one do you want to be the default? Like it really should be, this is my theme and it disables the other one, and there's none of this multiple themes enabled but they're not really doing anything feature unless you have a module like theme key installed that allows for switching between multiple themes. I don't know, that's my perspective on things. I also think that admin themes should specify whether or not they're admin or not, and you shouldn't allow any theme to be an admin theme. It should be like the theme has to say it's an admin theme or not. And then the admin theme list should really out of the box just be 7.
Are there core issues for these things? You talk a little slower while I write them down, please.
They're so opinionated. I don't know. I'm sure there's core issues. This isn't the first time I've talked about.
Where's Gregory when we need him? He'd have an issue number.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't write them though, so
I think I wrote an issue a long time ago about removing the ability to have more than one enabled theme. Like at the very beginning of Backdrop, I'm like, what is this? Why is this in here? We should get rid of it. But I'm not sure it's had any serious attention since then. That thing about disabled or admin themes being admin only or needing to define that they're admin is new. I hadn't heard that before, but I like it. So I want to add an issue for that one.
If we're on the let's let Nate talk and Jen makes issues thread, there's one other thing that occurred to me that would be fantastic, which is an option for let the admin theme control the login page. Because the login page on many themes is only for administrators. And so just like there's the checkbox for use admin theme for node edit, there should be use admin theme for login. Mm-hmm. And then we could make a really pretty login page for 7 that didn't look like crap, that had like a centered login box, that, that looked nice. And then everybody wouldn't need to theme the login form because it always looks like crap, because nobody ever looks at it except for admins.
So I think,
unless you have a community site, right?
Yeah, unless you
actual
have a
logged
community
in
site. But
users.
that use case is really the minority, it seems like, for most sites these days that are more blog or marketing centric.
So I think I would actually be really opposed to removing the ability to have multiple themes enabled, because disabling a theme is a destructive process. And if we just did that every time they change their theme, then it would revert all their settings every time they change their theme.
Ah.
There, it's yeah,
Which
it's
actually
possible.
it didn't used to do that, but we changed it because if you had a theme enabled and tried to import it in a site that didn't have the theme, you were unable to import your config.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Would it be crazy to add a like uninstall process for themes? So it could be like modules where there's enabled, disabled, installed, uninstalled.
Yeah, the user interface is just a completely bonkers thing about it. It might be possible to maintain the way things work under the hood and change the way that it's presented and still have it make more sense than what it does right now.
Yeah, it's one of those things we've all gotten used to, but now that you're talking about it, Nate, like you set a theme that's the theme for your site, but you only know it's that because it's at the top of the list that's otherwise undifferentiated. That that top spot is, syntactically incredibly important, yet not
Yeah.
not even noted, right?
And the way that it's like set default, like I mean, it's correct right now syntactically that you're setting the default theme. It just so happens that there's no way in core to not use the default theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's overloading the word default in a way that means it's just like an invented vocabulary word. It doesn't actually mean what default means in the rest of the universe.
Yeah, it would be much more clear if you were just selecting your theme, site theme. Choose your site theme. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could get into all kinds of things. You could have multiple admin themes, but we don't promote that, you only get one admin theme. Why do you get only one when there's multiple front-end themes for some reason? I don't know. Anyway, if we could move that functionality into contrib of being responsible for more than one front-end theme, I think that would be appropriate. But that login page thing, that's something I thought of recently. It's being like, that would be nice. Plus non-destructive. We can add that to 7 and turn it on by default. And it'll look nice.
Yeah.
Let's see. In the agenda, I did also have another general discussion topic, which we're running out of time on, but that there was a blog post that I was referring to about automatic updates for Drupal, that the automatic updates module has been released as stable for both Drupal 7 and for Drupal 8. But the focus right now, or had been, on automatic updates was for sites that were not managed by Composer. And it doesn't work with sites managed by Composer, which is the recommended way to install Drupal 8. So it's a little bit of a weird conundrum that it seems like the effort that has gone forward so far isn't necessarily beneficial to Drupal core for a feature that they would add in the future. It is extraordinarily helpful for us, though, because us not having managed our sites with Composer in the first place makes all of the functionality that they've written, and plus the complete port for Drupal 7 makes it so that all of this functionality is super useful for us. Now we already support manual updates of core, but there's some things in this module that could be very useful to us, including pre-flight checks. The pre-flight checks make sure that no files have been modified before it applies the updates. And if files have been hacked in core, then it says, I can't automatically update because you've modified core files. Or I can't automatically update because cron isn't running frequently enough. I can't run automatic updates because the file system isn't writable. And so it has like a, I don't know, 10 pre-flight checks or something like that, just to make sure that the system is in a good state that automatic updates can be applied. And I think we have like 3 by comparison. So that have any files been modified is one in particular that seems like a little tricky bit of code that is now out there and available for us to modify into Backdrop if we want. It also has some ability that I haven't figured out yet to run update.php. And right now, that's been one of our sticking points for automatic updates, that we support manual core updates, but automatic updates are difficult for us because a manual update, if there's an update.php run, we immediately send the user to run update.php and they just have to do that manually. And an automatic update, we don't have any mechanism to actually run it yet. So whatever modifications they have there as a contrib module in Drupal 7, they've managed to run update.php in an automated fashion. So that also is highly useful for us. It also includes some signature functionality. It's using some external libraries to do key checking, which we've been working on separately as something that's part of CodeSign. So that stuff probably not so useful to us. And also, like, we could just straight up port automatic updates module from 7 to Backdrop, and that would be easy. But I don't think that that's the appropriate move for us, because we already have installer module in core that is responsible for the pre-flight checks that we have and for installing things that we installing projects from Backdrop cms.org right now, that it would make more sense if we incorporated the functionality of automatic updates into installer module, which does our manual updates right now. And so it's not quite like a, lift and shift type thing that we can just take all of this code from the Drupal 7 module and port it to Backdrop. It's going to require a little bit of integration work. But anyway, I think all of this is to say there's some really great work there. It's highly applicable to us, and it would be useful for us to include in core.
That sounds great.
Yeah, ironically more useful to us than it is for Drupal.
I have a technical question about the way update works. It's the kind of thing that I feel like I should know. Is update ACID? I mean, if it doesn't work, can it be rolled back?
For the most part, I would say no. Like if you update a module or update core, well, first of all, in order for updates to be rollback compliant, you'd have to do a database backup.
Yeah.
And even right now, with a manual update that you've just pulled in the code for, even if it's managed by version control, when you visit update.php, it tells you you're required or recommended to make a backup of your database and your config files before you proceed, because once those changes are made, neither of them can be rolled back automatically.
So this is one of those things we've inherited that I don't understand. Like my understanding of database stuff is that 20 years ago, that was not how you're supposed to do it. Originally, I mean, MySQL didn't have transactions, right? But it's had transactions for 15 years now, right?
Yeah, although updates, the way that they're run, an individual update can be successful, and so the transaction would be successful, but the next request, because it batches them, like you could have 5 updates be successful and the 6th one fail, and that even if that was contained within a transaction, you've still made 5 previous transactions that were successful, that the whole thing needs to be rolled back probably.
Okay. Well, I mean, you got to the answer. The answer is no. and now we're like, why not? Okay, I like it. That's the whole point of transactions, right? Is if while you're in an unstable state, you're inside a transaction. If it doesn't complete, you roll back to the beginning of the transaction to your last known stable state.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. Like more like a snapshot almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't answering it directly, but backup migrate provides the functionality of backup before you run update.php, and can fill that hole a little bit. But yeah, the focus for the automatic updates module has been trying to ensure that things don't go wrong before they do, and then sort of still the same, cross your fingers and hope that this works, with the idea that sites are more secure or more likely to be stable with automatic updates that have risk versus sites that don't have automatic updates that are permanently vulnerable to exploitation. And so, Drupal Geddons 1 and 2 really, I think, drove that home, that that not having automatic updates of any kind was really bad.
I mean, the risk from bugs is less than the risk from hackers, basically.
Right. Well, I'm not actually sure that's totally true, but there's something about the lack of control when you have no way to fix a problem because you don't have the tools available for automatic updates, that you just have well, we didn't prepare for this, and so there's nothing we can do other than to tell everybody to update and trust them. But it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths, I think, when every Drupal site you've ever built got hacked, and even though it's your fault, maybe as the developer, that you didn't maintain it, it's still, I don't know, the expectation is that software developers should be taking care of you, for that sort of thing, at least as far as websites are concerned. But yeah, having more kind of restoration capabilities would definitely be appreciated. It's just that it's a bigger problem. And I think that's that work that it's eluding me. We had someone that was very interested in doing something that had restoration capabilities quite a while ago. But he was looking at doing that for arbitrary, can update any CMS with rollback capabilities across the board, because the rollback functionality was so complicated by itself that he was like, this should be its own project and be able to update anything. And of course, then that went down its own little rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Curator was what it was called. Here we go.
I think
Curator Wick.
Another problem we would have is that we need to change files and the database in a synchronized manner, because sometimes we're changing config files, and that would be a hard thing to do a database rollback and then have config files that didn't match what was in the database.
Mike Bantam. Here's the project. It's called Curator. I'm gonna throw this in the chat. Just as I don't know, it's something that had been attempted a while back. Looks like there hasn't been any updates to it in about a year. But as you can see, it's turned into quite a thing. Yeah, I haven't checked in on this in a long time. I think there's just some maybe it's my belief that in order for automatic updates to be effective, it needs to be there out of the box, turned on by default, and it needs to not require any additional setup. It has to just be there. Because if it requires any additional setup, if you've got Backdrop installed and automatic updates aren't turned on as part of that, I think a new user would say, oh, my site's running, and not follow any of the subsequential steps. It's like how cron is never set up, and so because the site is running, and so Backdrop's approach to cron has been background cron, like the lazy man's cron is fine. We built out the background fetch and background cron functionalities saying, and we increased the frequency in which end of page cron is run to make it so things like scheduler would run. Although it's still recommended to use cron.php to run it more frequently and on a dedicated task. For small sites, like setting up cron is like not a required thing that they do. And I think that that kind of mentality is what needs to be preserved for automatic updates as well. That needs to be out of the box. If your site is running, it also has automatic updates.
What if we bundled backup and migrate and had it turned on by default? So every release, it would pull a backup or something like that.
Yeah, I really like this idea too. Backup and migrate is currently our #1 contrib module. So I think it's also an indicator of like our audience are the kinds of people that are going to want to use a tool like backup and migrate, whereas Drupal audience might have a tool like Pantheon or Acquia that provides that service for them. But there is a lot of funny stuff going on in backup and migrate that I think we wouldn't want in core. Like there's a whole bunch of integration with like Node Squirrel, it doesn't exist anymore. I think it would need to be trimmed down a little bit and integrated, but I do like the idea of providing it by default. I don't know what that would look like with automatic updates. I think it would make sense to be like, make a backup before you make an update. But if the site it does get broken during update, you're not going to have the interface from backup and migrate to restore either.
Right.
So it's like, if it's a little broken, you're fine. If it's totally hosed, you are totally hosed. So, yeah.
Could you write a little module, like not even module, just like write a little program that all it does is access your database and revert?
Well, we already have some scripts that ship with Backdrop that do things like reset passwords and stuff. I think if we had a standard location of like, there's backup and migrate, the backups live here, the name is formatted in this way, we could provide a script that would be like, restore from latest backup, yes, no. And you could say yes, and it could import a database. But that might not be enough. I mean, I don't know where in the process it's getting garbled, but it could be like importing the latest database with the newest code isn't going to do it. You have to like roll back everything. So yeah, you kind of have to know what needs to be reverted in order to be able to do that kind of operation, which is hard.
Yeah.
Well, my dad and I, on our server, when we back up a website, we have separate database files and code backups for each thing. And yeah, so that we can like say, okay, here's our config directory, here are our files, here's our database, like everything matches.
Yeah.
Like what Pantheon and Acquia host and things like that. Good. Nate, you're gonna be late for your party.
Yeah.
Yep, I am. So should we wrap up?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's wrap up. Interesting discussion. There's more to be said, I'm sure. We do have the automatic updates meta issue and several tangential issues that are underneath that. So that can be a good place to continue discussing. So that's it. Thank you everybody for coming today. And yeah, 117 is open book. Post some comments on initiatives in the forum or start advocating for issues for 117. So that's it. Thanks everybody. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Yep.